Welcome to the Minnesota Rovers Tuesday evening presentation. Minnesota Rovers is an outdoors club based in Minneapolis, St. Paul. Our members organize trips that range from 1 hour to 2 weeks in Minnesota or further afield. Examples of our activities include hiking, biking, backpacking, skiing, snowshoeing, paddling, and rock climbing. We also organize conservation and trail clearing trips. Our members have experience and skills in many outdoor activities, so if you want to learn a new outdoor activity, we can probably help you. For more information, go to mnrovers.org. Now let's move on to this week's presentation.
Tonight, you're here to hear from Josh Brand about hut-to-hut hiking in the Italian Dolomites. Josh is an avid backpacker and world traveler and has been a member of the Rovers since 2019. He has given back to the Rovers community through coordinating epic backpacking trips, guiding the club through COVID as the trip's director, and establishing the current Rovers beginner backpacking program. Please welcome Josh Brand.
Looks like it's all sharing. So thanks for that great introduction. We are, as Stacy said, we're going to be talking about hiking hut to hut in the Dolomites with a Via Ferrata. So I guess I don't have to introduce myself. So I'll skip past that slide and straight to starting with the history of the Dolomites. So the whole region has actually changed hands quite a lot over the years. And during World War I, it traded hands. And it's actually a fascinating area to go into because while it is in Italy, everybody looks like German. It's really interesting to see the buildings, eat the food in the area because it's very much a Bavarian feeling. And this area was a major conflict area during World War II when the Austro-Hungarian Empire and Italy were fighting war in the region. And the Via Ferratas in this region came about to move troops and equipment around safely and quickly. And Via Ferrata means iron path or iron way. And it's basically a network of fixed cables and ladders. So as with many things, while war is very horrible, very bad, a lot of things that are used during wars end up becoming recreational areas. And that's definitely the case with the Via Ferratas. So, as I said, a Via Ferrata is an iron way. So it's a protected climbing route through a mountain area. So it's steel cables, ladders, various fixed anchors, rungs, bridges, even zip lines. In our case, we didn't have any zip lines, but it's not an uncommon thing on a Via Ferrata. So it allows you to experience extraordinarily rugged areas that would otherwise be inaccessible to the vast majority of people. So participants wear a harness and they clip into cables with a very special type of attachment mechanism, which I'll show you in a later slide. And it basically allows you to move along. So you can see in both of these pictures off to either side from this trip, you can see we're in extremely exposed areas that you probably shouldn't generally hike in, but we're clipped into the cables. Now, if you're going to go do a Via Ferrata, this is a basic equipment list, but it's very similar to backpacking. Now, we were staying in huts, so we didn't have to carry tents or sleeping bags. The main thing that we did have to carry from a sleeping standpoint is a hostel bed liner. So pretty lightweight. So we all generally carried, I think we were at about 40-liter packs, which was probably bigger than we needed. But it's like a backpacking light experience, and I'll show some pictures and talk a little bit more about the whole experience later. It was truly, I would call it luxury by my standards. But some of the key differences here versus backpacking are that you're carrying some basic climbing gear. So you carry a climbing kit. The next slide will actually, let's go to the next slide. So a climbing kit. Now, this website, Palaronda Trek, it was translated from Italian. So what the climbing kit means, it says carabiners, thin ropes, and descender. So off to the right, you can see the climbing kit. What they really mean is a via ferrata set. And what that comprises of, it's got the loop down at the lower right-hand side that connects into your harness. It has a very specialized shock absorber. You don't want a static rope if you're going to fall. You want a dynamic rope for more comfort. And that shock absorber is actually a one-time use. So when you're hiking a via ferrata, you don't fall. The whole idea is to stay connected at all times, keep at least one hand or 3 points of contact at any time. So the guides actually carried a couple of extra via ferrata sets just in case someone did fall, because once you do fall, this device is considered completely useless. And then from there, you have these lanyards that connect to carabiners, and there's a couple of key features that you want to make sure you have here. One, I found the swivel down at the bottom where it wies off was extremely useful. Some of us had harnesses or via ferrata sets with swivels and some without. And if you have the swivel, it's really easy to untangle it as you're moving along the via ferrata. So if you do consider this, spend the extra 20 bucks on a swivel. It's worth it. Also, the carabiners, they have latch or delatching mechanisms on the back end of the carabiner. And that really helps to quickly remove the carabiner and put it back on with one hand. You don't need two hands, or you don't need to rotate a locking mechanism on a carabiner. Now, some other things you would need for this. You do need a climbing helmet. I don't have a picture here. I think everyone knows what a climbing helmet is. You do need a harness. And one tip, so I took what I thought was a little bit of a risk, and I bought an ultralight harness. So the harness you see here is a Petzl ultralight harness that it's ridiculously light. I think it was like 4 ounces, and it folds up smaller than the size of a soda can. Now, you would never want to do real climbing with this harness. It is not padded. It is only life safety. So I have a separate harness for the climbing gym and for mountaineering. This is just for via ferratas. But as I mentioned earlier, when you're on a via ferrata, you don't fall. So it'll save your life, but you're not going to be comfortable. And then the other thing, and we actually did make a stop by some sporting goods stores on our way up into the Dolomites for some people who forgot mountaineering gloves, and everybody was glad they brought them. So as you're going through a via ferrata, you're handling galvanized steel cables, and galvanized steel cables fray, they get burrs, and if you do this without gloves, your hands will be shredded raw in the first day, and you're going to have to leave the trip. So the mountaineering gloves are absolutely critical. Now, with the via ferrata, you always stay connected. So you can see here, this is where we were learning to do a via ferrata. And you can see the fellow in the white shirt there, he's removing one of his carabiners. But notice everybody, I think except for the guide, who was a famous Italian mountain climber, but all of us are connected with at least one carabiner at any given time. Paul off to the right there isn't connected yet. He's coming in from a flat spot, getting ready to get connected. So as you hit the anchors, and you can see one anchor down by Ryan's left hand there, the guy in the blue shirt, as you get to the anchor, your carabiner is not going to be able to move forward. So that's why you have 2 ropes and 2 carabiners. You take one off, move it to the next section, and then you take your other carabiner off and move it to the next section. So you are always staying connected when you are in exposed areas, and that's how you remain safe on a via ferrata. So some of the basic details about getting into a trip like this. So our tour provider, it was Ronda Trek. So there's the website there. Um, if you have never done a Via Ferrata, I would recommend going with a guide service. It's gonna really help you get the gist of how to do it, understand how to be safe. It's definitely possible to do it yourself. We saw a lot of people doing this trip themselves. And you can actually plan this trip or book this trip through Ronda Trek, um, self-guided or with guides. So we brought 8 people, and what we ended up doing was we had 2 guides. They have one guide for every 4 people, with a max group size of 8 people total. And that's largely driven by the hut capacity. And you'll see some of the pictures of some of the huts. Some of them were pretty small, and surprisingly, actually, some of the smaller huts were, I would say, some of the best huts. This company, too, they have a very accessible tour office or tour company office in the city that you start from, which is San Martino di Castrosa, which is an Italian ski town. So, how much does this cost? Palaranda Trek has a number of different options. As you can see here, there's 3-day trips, 4-day trips, 6-day trips, guided and unguided. So we did the Palaranda Ferrata Classic, 6 days. So the 6-day self-guided is only 465 euros per person. And there is a minimum number of participants if you get a guide. So the 6-day is 1,120 euros. So quite a bit more expensive, but you're getting a lot of safety by having the guides with. Some of the things that are included too, it includes all of the lodging in the huts, and it includes half board. So it includes breakfast and dinner. Some of the logistics for getting here. So the Dolomites are in northern Italy, and I think everybody can probably recognize the boot here, and you can obviously see all these places I've been, all my stars, but I've got circled there where San Martino is, just to give everyone a rough reference for where this is in the world. To get here, or to get to the Dolomites, the easiest place is flying into Venice. However, there are other options. You could fly into Innsbruck and drive in from Austria. Some people will come in from Milan. There's a lot of different options, but if you're specifically going just to the Dolomites, I recommend flying into the Venice airport. It's a highly accessible airport. You can get there from Minneapolis with only 2 legs. Unfortunately, you can't get a direct flight from Minneapolis, but you can get there relatively quickly. So you may as well go to Venice as well too while you're there. I spent a few days in Venice with friends, and really amazing city. If you haven't been there, I really highly recommend going there and experiencing the water taxis, the food, and even getting out to some of the outlying islands, which were very, very pleasant. And I actually liked a lot of the outlying islands better than Venice. They didn't quite have the same architecture, but they were pretty fantastic. So the route we followed, this was a 6-day route, and this is one of the Alta Vias follows part of this. I believe we ran into people doing the Alta Via 1, which is a very, very famous route in the Dolomites. And we were running into them at Rifugio Rosetta. So this was a 6-day, 5-night trip. So as you can see, there's 5 different huts on this route. Now, we actually missed the Refugio Malaz, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But overall, this was a big loop trip. So we started and finished in the same area. So I mentioned San Martino. So San Martino is where we went into. It's a extremely accessible ski town. As I mentioned, it's a place people go in the winter to ski. The roads are good. They're a little fun having the windy Italian European roads. But there's a lot of great hotels. There's good restaurants. Excellent, excellent beer, and relatively cheap beer. And it's a great place to as a starting point. I probably wouldn't stay there multiple days, but it was definitely a great location. But expect to spend north of $300 a night for a hotel there. And you do want to get there the night before because you do need to go to the tour office in order to get access to your whole route packet. So day one started, no joke, with an escalator. Um, so being a ski resort, they put us in the gondola, and there were actually a series of two gondolas we took. I was a little taken aback, taking an escalator on more or less a backpacking trip. I'm not a big fan of gondolas. I don't mind heights, but gondolas freak me out. It was a great time nonetheless. So as you can see off to the left here, this is the whole group. This was at the start of the trip, so there were there were eight of us. And let's see here. I think we had a total of four rovers with. But the guides are in the yellow. So the guy with the frizzy hair, he's the famous Italian climber. He actually he designs or tweaks designs for La Sportiva. And it was kind of cool at the end of the trip. Jamal Love went into a sporting goods store right next to where we were having breakfast on the way out, and he found the shoes and he bought the shoes. So that's kind of a cool souvenir. Um, that fellow was with us, I believe, just for the first 3 days. But then Rocco, the one with the headband there and the vest over his yellow jacket, he was the one who was with us the whole time. And both of them were a hoot. Rocco was funny because he smoked like a chimney. He was in his 60s, but he could put all of us to shame physically. He was just an amazing guy. He climbs, climbs, climbs all season long. And these all of these climbing guides were fascinating people. They do more than just guide. They really give back to their community, so they are actually part of the mountain search and rescue crew as well. And so when we saw the search and rescue helicopter flying over on actually day one, um, he was talking about that. And um, but as we got up to the top, so the views you're seeing right now, so you can see me there with a little bit of snow. A few days before, there was significant snow in this region. We were seeing pictures and we are like, "Oh crap! Do we need to go get some sort of traction devices?" We went without traction. It wasn't an issue, but we specifically timed our trip to start on July 9th based on the recommendation of the tour provider. They suggested we go a little bit later to ensure we don't deal with snow. And they were absolutely positively right. Um, Now, right beneath that, that's the Rosetta Hut. And that hut is the one we stayed in on day four or night three. We could see it right away from the top of the mountain, and you can kind of see the snow there on the rock. So day one, our primary focus was on learning how to via ferrata. So we had a practice ferrata. So as you can see here, we were having a lot of fun getting out there, getting into our harnesses. You can see us all lined up off to the left, but the views were just absolutely spectacular. I don't think any of us wanted to go any faster than we had to. And one of the things I noticed right away as we got into this region is the rock. I believe it's actually called Dolomite, if I remember right. But the rock, excuse me, um, the rock was almost chalky. Like I would never ever consider using chalk for at least for a via ferrata in a situation like this because it was the grippiest rock I've ever used. You know, if you get into some of the granite, that can be sharp and slippery, but I never felt like there was any shortage of grip strength or friction when I was grabbing onto any rocks. So one of the things that really kind of struck me in this area, so off to the left, you can't quite see it, but that was our first break of the day. And right over that hill, we could literally see cities. So when you're in this region of the Dolomites, while cell phone reception can be hit or miss, we had a lot of cell phone reception, and there were also a lot of bailout points. So if you ever did have an issue, it's pretty quick to get out of this area. Also, this time of the year, there's not a lot of snow, and the Dolomites are relatively low elevation. We topped out at, I believe, about 8,000 feet. So you don't really, like, we really didn't worry about acclimation because it just wasn't that high up in general. Um, so as we got to the hut on day one, so this was Refugio Pradadali. So you can see the that hut, the kind of a view from below. Very large hut, beautiful hut. And we had kind of a cool surprise. So as we got in, I was actually taking a nap because I was so dang tired from the hike that day. I don't know why, but the cables that they used to bring their supplies up actually were out of service. So off to the left, you can see a helicopter coming in. That helicopter was dropping off that fellow you see there, who was coming in to help with airdrops. A few days before, there had been a major rock slide that blocked the transport wagon on the cable. So they spent about an hour, probably did a dozen and a half trips back and forth doing airdrops, and it was kind of fun to see everybody, even the guides were jumping in, grabbing the supplies and bringing them right into the hut. I've never been that close to a an airdrop operation, so that was kind of cool. But also kind of nerve-wracking, just considering how high risk airdrops are when you're in regions like this. The helicopter pilot too was extraordinarily aggressive. Seeing the dives he did to get out of the area and quickly back to the pickup location, I could never do flying like that. Also in this hut, in that picture, you can see kind of the gray silverish building on top of some rocks. That's actually the crew quarters. So in this area, the staff did not stay in the hut. They had their own private quarters separate from the hut. So this is the interior of Refugio Pradadali. Uh, and it was very comfortable in the interior, and there was plenty of space in the dining rooms. And during both dinner and breakfast, they have seatings that's allocated for each group. So it's not one of those huts where you have to worry about getting space to sit down and are people going to hang out for hours and you're not going to have a spot. You're totally covered. So you don't have to worry about that. You just show up at dinner time and they serve you. Um, Now I'll show a picture of one of the bunk rooms a little later on. The bunk rooms are just that. They're bunk rooms. They're not super special, but the thing I was really amazed by was how clean the bunk rooms were. These staff they're very strict on when you have to be out every morning. Typically, it's sometime between about 7 and 8 that you have to be out. And then they're turning over the rooms. They're cleaning everything top to bottom in the bunk rooms, in the bathrooms. And, some refugios in some parts of the world can be pretty trashy. I've heard plenty of things about down in Patagonia and the refugios down there. This was just spick and span. So after day one, we got on to the real Via Ferrata. So this was one of the two top most challenging days of the trip. And we went from a practice ferrata that really didn't feel that hard to 1,000 feet, more or less straight up. And I don't know if these pictures truly give total credence to what this is like, but hopefully you can kind of see some of the diagrams on there In the left photo, you can see the person, you can see the trail or the line you follow. Um, and this was literally straight up. So you had a straight up of about 500 feet, and then you traversed to the left, and then you had more very, very aggressive climbing. And that photo in the middle, that's a legit photo from this straight up. You have rungs that you climb, and you're connecting your via ferrata set to it all along the way. This is a situation where you can't really be scared. You just got to go because the only way is through. I actually, this was one of the few instances too where I was able to hit that kind of mental flow state and where you're with the mountain. You're not thinking about anything else. You're focused on not dying and not falling and executing the moves in an elegant and safe fashion. So here's some more great pictures here. So Donde Dan was the fellow who was behind me this whole day. So I got a lot of photos of him. You can see Ryan right behind him as well. Ryan is on the call today. So at the end, we'll see. I think Ryan and Paul can probably help answer any questions that anyone may have. But this should give you some really good reference to what we were doing. Looking straight down at Dan there, seeing the climb. One of the things too, I believe it was on day 2, Jamal accidentally had a Nalgene fall out of his pack. And that's one of the reasons why you wear helmets. And I think the Nalgene probably fell about 100 feet before it hit anything. It hit rock, and the way it burst open, I thought it was just like just a disposable water bottle. It was an Nalgene. Um, it's a good reminder when you are in situations like this, you need to make sure all of your gear is fully strapped in and nothing can fall out. This whole day was absolutely extraordinarily tiring. I think I took a 2-hour nap when we got to the hut because of it. And I will just throw out there, I don't know if Dan or his brother Dave are on, but we very quickly named Dan Donde Dan, which means where is in Italian. And the joke was, okay, we all have to be at the bottom of the ski resort on day 1 at 9 a.m. Dan, you have to be there at 8. And he still showed up 15 minutes late. The guides quickly caught on to this. So now he is, even here in the US, he is known as Donde Dan. And that's how he got his trail name. So here's some more great examples. A lot of you probably recognize some of the faces here. You can see more of this straight up here. That's our guide in the middle going straight up and demonstrating. But this is not for the faint of heart. If you are afraid of heights, you should either be ready to get over it real fast or you should choose a non-via ferrata route. You can see off to the right too, there are some legit ladders as well. And one of the kind of interesting things about these rungs too, as I mentioned, they originally started the Via Ferrata in this area for World War I for moving troops. And so you could see some of the old anchors, the old rungs, and everything is just cemented or epoxied into holes that are drilled. And there were some anchors that were loose, and so we'd always let each other know, hey, there's a loose anchor there. These things do release, they do fail. So you do need to pay attention to how they're performing and whether or not they're well affixed. More pictures of our amazing guys, Rocco, and once again, I don't remember his name, some famous climber who designs for La Sportiva. It was kind of funny to this type of environment for them is natural. So in a lot of cases, we'd be connected on the cables, and they wouldn't be, and they'd be like going around us and going to people and helping. So I can only imagine how they laugh at the tourists who have to get connected to the Via Ferrata cables. Um, but these fellows would open new routes in the Dolomites. They are literally professional climbers, and it's what they do for their life. And once again, look at Rocco on the left, the shape he's in, smokes like a chimney, and he had more cardiovascular endurance than all of us combined. I don't know how he did it. So day two, we got to this was my actually my favorite hut, Refugio Velo della Madonna. Also an extremely tiring day. You can see that great photo there as we're approaching golden hour, getting a lot of good photographic lighting. And this was actually kind of a cool hut too. I was looking for pictures of the hut dogs and I couldn't find them. But some of the huts had dogs, and they weren't on leashes. They were large dogs. They some of them were friendly. Some of them wanted nothing to do with you, but they were used to people. And in this hut, there was one of the dogs that liked to go inside the hut regularly, and he would just go up to the door and he would look up at the door handle. So I let him in, and no big deal. And he'd want to get out at some point. He'd look up at the door handle and you'd let him out. They were very good at communicating, never any issues with the dogs. And Ryan got some good pets in with the dogs, but for some reason, I was not a dog whisperer on this trip. But this hut was great. As you can see, it was perched on a nice outcropping, very exposed, but a very, very great view. So day three was different. So we had a smaller ferrata, but we had to actually do a significant reroute because there had been a major landslide, causing a detour to a really great restaurant. Um, now, I told the guides, look, we are all very experienced backpackers in high alpine environments. I think we could do this. And the guide just goes, no, this is impossible. I would not even do it. So we took the detour. We hiked down to a road, and I mean, I have detour in quotes for a reason. I mean, we all got beer, we all got wonderful, really good food. I had an amazing beet salad with some goat cheese. I had my double espresso that I had the whole time, or all at every single hut. Really, really great experience getting off of the trail for a little bit. And then we actually got a ride to the next trailhead. I don't remember how long the hike was going to be. I think it was going to be something like 15 miles. So they brought us up on a ride, or on a truck, but they did two trips. So I was like, hey, you guys go ahead and I'll wait. And they're like, oh no, you can start hiking up so we don't have to drive as far. And I swear we must have hiked 2 miles uphill before the truck came and found us. But oh well. So that's where we ended up then at Refugio Treviso. So all of the huts have beer and wine and I think a number of spirits. Um, this was a pretty great hut as well. I guess all of them were. But the thing I really remember here is it was the first shower of the trip. So in the huts, they can be limited on water access. So with the glacier recession and inconsistent snowfalls we're seeing worldwide in alpine environments, um, water just is not as accessible anymore in the Dolomites. So they have to conserve water to ensure they have enough water for the basics, for washing hands, flushing toilets, whatever. Um, so we got to have a shower, and I think it was like €8 or something like that. I mean, it was an expensive shower, but I don't care. I'm taking the shower. um, Now, one of the kind of funny experiences here too. So as I mentioned, in these huts, you get half board included, and you can purchase a lunch for the trail. In a lot of cases, we'd get to the hut around maybe 1 p.m. So we would just eat lunch in the dining room. We'd order a lunch and we'd get some nice pasta or sandwich or whatever. On this day, we knew it was going to be a longer day. And so it was recommended that we purchase a sandwich. And they had speck and ham sandwiches available. Not speck and ham on the same sandwich, but speck or ham. And speck is just it's just salami. It's what they call it in Italy. And they had cheese as well. But I'm a big eater. I like my protein. And I asked them, well, can you just put speck and ham on the sandwich? And they go, no, that's not it. That's impossible. It's kind of like, if am I getting this right? It's kind of like having a cappuccino in the afternoon in Italy. You don't do that. And it was just hilarious because I asked like three different staff, I'm like, can you just put both on? And they go, no, that's impossible. I'm like, I'll pay for two sandwiches. They go, no, that's impossible. I almost bought two sandwiches and just put them together, but I'm just like, screw it. Um, but that was the joke for the next couple of days. No, that's impossible. And it was just the same response from every single staff member. Now in this hut, we had Hefeweizen available, so different huts would have often different types of beer. I tended to like the red beers. I'm not as much of a Hefeweizen fan, but I settled for the Hefeweizen. They also tended to have the glass bottles here. A lot of the huts had beer on tap, so they actually had kegs up there. Now, this hut had some of those most amazing views too. We had rain hit right after we got to the hut, and our guides tried to time our hike to ensure we would get there before the rain started. And I was out taking a phone call about 30 minutes after we got there, and 10 minutes into the phone call, I had to just tell my dad, "You need to stop talking. It's raining. I need to go in." But it brought great views, really wonderful fog came in, really highlighting the mountainside. And that brings us to day 4. So I mentioned day 2 being the most challenging via ferrata. Day 4 had minimal via ferrata, um, but we had a 3,800-foot climb. So for those of you who don't have reference of what a 3,800-foot climb is, for flatlanders like us who are not acclimated to high elevation, a 1,500-foot climb in one day is very challenging. Like a 1,500-foot pass, you're going to do one of those a day at the start of a hike. Now, after you're a week into a hike, or maybe in 4 or 5 days into a hike, you might do 3, 4, or 5,000 feet of climb. 3,800 feet is ridiculous. But we did it. We took it slow, and then our guides told us you did this faster than any other crew we've ever had. Um, but lots of great views. And for those of you who know Kim Love, and you've backpacked with her, you know that anytime there's water, her boots are off and her feet are in the water. And you can see she found a tiny little trickle of water there, and her feet were in there. And you can see she is happy as a clam, as usual. We also had some great wildflowers on day 4. So being early season, mid-July in the Alpine is generally early season. We did have a lot of wildflowers throughout this whole day, and it was really great to see it. Now it wasn't like the meadows of wildflowers that you see in some areas. Although we did see a meadow of Edelweiss on day 1, which was pretty cool. But it's fun to see the color throughout the hike and throughout the day. So here you can see off to the left, this is us actually coming to the top of the 3,800-foot climb. And I'd actually gotten out a little ways ahead, and my hiking style, I get what's called trail drunk, which means you're hiking head down, and then you miss a cairn, and you're like, oh, where am I? And I never get more than about 20 or 30 feet off trail. And I always find my way back. But after that, the guide was like, no, you're staying behind me. And I'm like, I know what I'm doing. Um, but I listened somewhat. Now, one of the interesting things we noticed this day as well, we had a lot more signs that we ran across. And I started noticing, that doesn't make sense. I don't think that's 1.15 kilometers. And in this region, the signs don't have kilometers or distance, they have hours of hiking. I've never seen that before, so it was just kind of a cool thing to see. So we ultimately got to the top of the climb. I mean, you can see here, I guess this is a little bit out of order, but off to the left here, you can see how high that is. And for those of you who have spent a lot of time in the mountains, you know that's a major, major climb right there. And we ultimately did get to the top. We went through just an extraordinarily beautiful valley, did a little bit more climbing, and we were up in the clouds. We were totally socked in. Our guides knew the area. We had GPS, so it wasn't an issue. But we had a really fantastic lunch stop here where I had my speck and cheese sandwich without ham. I was very sad. Um, and then we got another great group photo shortly after that. Like any alpine environment too, we saw many glaciers that were receding, and our guides, having spent decades in the area, were able to point out where the glacier used to be and where it is now. So it's very, very sad what we're seeing with the glaciers. Definitely get out there and enjoy the glaciers while you can, because they'll be gone within our lifetime, unfortunately. So that brought us to day 4 at Refugio Rosetta. And it was a very fun hike, hiking in the fog, in the clouds. It was very socked in. And some of you might remember this hut from day 1. So this is part of the big loop. So we actually ended up back at the region, or the location where we had come up on the gondola. So I just dropped this in here because I kind of thought this was a fun door closer. So literally, it's a hiking boot with a teddy bear in it and some sort of weight in it to close the door. So all of these huts had cute little things they like to do, just to have fun. I mean, they were all cool people, hard workers, very, very friendly and sociable. So here we've got one of the bunk rooms. So the bunk rooms were typically either 4 people or 8 people. As you can see, very clean, very comfortable. And as I mentioned, they do have a sense of humor. I had to take a picture of this women's restroom sign. It was just too good to pass up. It's Europe. I was actually in Denmark right before this, and it's very different there. In Denmark, swimming does not involve changing. It apparently just involves taking your clothes off and jumping in the ocean, which we saw, and that's totally normal. So there's definitely a different outlook on bodies in Europe, and they like to have fun. PP woman. So food up here in the huts, it was somewhat basic, but it was still good. It was, a lot of it was Bavarian influenced. In some cases, I'd have polenta sausage and literally grilled cheese, not a grilled cheese sandwich, but grilled cheese. Often you'd have some pasta with some sort of a sauce. It could be a white sauce, red sauce, with like a ham or a speck or something like that. But we ate fairly well. And I definitely ate fairly well. Um, I received my current trail name on this trip, garbage disposal, or GD. People found out that when they were done eating, just push it over to me. It'll be gone in seconds. And that definitely worked for me. In this hut as well, too, it was kind of cool. They had place maps. So just kind of a cool thing to have instead of just plain paper, or just plain blank placemats. Also, I want to talk a little bit about charging for those of you who might be considering going to the huts. So you're not guaranteed to be able to charge, but I believe at least two, if not three, of the four huts we were in had opportunities to charge. Now, this is Europe, so you have to have a European plug. That's very important. Actually, in this hut, we even had power outlets within our bunk room. But here they actually had a charging station, and you can see there's no electricity from 10 to 7:30. I think they're just trying to keep people in their rooms and sleeping and quiet. But I definitely brought a bigger battery pack than I needed. You don't need that big of a battery pack, but definitely bring an external battery to charge your phone and any other devices. So that brings us to day 5. So this was a 6-day trip. When you do book these trips, they do make it clear they don't do refunds for weather. And we unfortunately did have weather. So we had extremely high winds, thunderstorms, and lightning coming in. And when you're on a Via Ferrata, lightning, I think it goes without saying, is a very, very bad thing. So we ultimately, the group stayed together and we made the decision to hike out. So some of us went to Lake Garda in Trento. We found an Airbnb in the Lake Garda area and enjoyed our time there. We went to various cities along the way. We had a really grand time experiencing more of Italy. The Dissel camps went on to visit their family about an hour away, a couple days early, and we saw some great sights. Jamal got killed by a Spartan. I think he's recovered by now. And we also found an Italian restaurant in Lake Garda. That was too good to pass up the picture. Just hilarious, an Italian restaurant in Italy. Who would have thought? And we had some great food, saw some great sights in the Lake Garda and Trento area all along the way on those last couple of days. So to kind of close it up here, some tips, additional tips related to a Dolomites trip. So self-service is frequent, but it's not everywhere. So as I mentioned, this region is not very remote. You can typically see cities, resorts, farms from a lot of the overlooks. Still very beautiful, beautiful areas, but it's not that remote. I talked about the charging showers. As I mentioned, they're limited and they're not available everywhere and they're limited on time. So €8 is going to get you, I think, about 6 minutes or so. Now, in terms of paying, if you want to buy beer, when you're buying water, you're buying lunch, the huts do typically take credit cards, but those credit card machines work over the cellular networks, which can be hit or miss, and especially depending on weather, they may or may not actually work. So bring cash. I brought €300. That was more than adequate. And I was trying to spend it all in towards the end, and I still had cash after the trail. But if you bring €300, that's going to be more than enough. One of the other things, water at the huts is not potable. You have to buy bottled water at the huts, and it's typically about €2 to €5 per liter. So it is not cheap, but you're typically only going to drink about €3 to €5 or 3 to 5 liters a day. So just plan on budgeting for that if you go. Also, the breakfasts are carby. There's often bread, toast, wonderful jam, amazing butter. There might be some cheese. They'll provide coffee, but they are limited and low on protein. So some of the huts had eggs for purchase, hard-boiled eggs. But if you are a person who needs a little bit more protein, I would definitely recommend bringing some protein supplementation. So that concludes my presentation. If you do have any questions or you would like to connect, my Rover's email address is here. And I am also on Facebook, and I will just throw out a quick pitch. I am looking for mountaineering buddies to get out on the glaciers with me. So if anyone else is looking for mountaineering buddies, please reach out to me. And with that, I'll open it to any questions. And Stacy or Jerry, are there any questions in the chat?
I see one from Carol, and she's wondering what the total trip cost was in US dollars.
Oh, let's see here. Well, 1,120 euros, that's about $1,300, $1,400. Um, a lot of it depends on how you do it. Like, we stuck three people in the hotel room on the first night in San Martino. So I think we spent $125 a person. Um, Flying, I mean, it depends. I flew on miles, so I didn't pay for my flights to get there. But I mean, getting to Europe, you're looking at typically from Minnesota, you're typically looking at about 1,200 to 1,800 round trip. Um, I rented a car, but once again, I stuck three people in that car, so it was about $100 a person on the car. All in all, I mean, it's not a cheap trip. You're probably looking at about $3,500 more if you tack on Venice. But one of the things I did as well, like I mentioned, I went to Denmark prior to this. If you can loop it in with other trips, that can be a big savings. I mean, I guess you're spending more on the trip overall, but at least you're not hopping across the ocean multiple times in a year. Now, the Loves, they went to Austria and they did a bike tour beforehand. So, everybody who came over, they had different things that they were doing either on the front end or back end of the trip.
Great.
Let's see. I see a question from John. With the huts, I'm always interested in the plumbing. How do they source water? How do they treat it? How do they manage sewage? So I think the sewage they just pump down and treat in the cities. The water comes from springs and snow runoff. So there were pipes all over that were piping the water in, and it's mountain water. I don't think it was treated in any way. They told us it is not potable. Don't use it for toothbrushing, things like that. And typically, mountain runoff is pretty clear. It's not always clean, but it's pretty clear. So I think they just basically ran it through maybe a screen to pull out any debris and then used it. And that's why we did have to buy the bottled water. Let's see. D is asking, did you notice vegetarian options at the huts? And I have to admit, that's not something I was paying attention to. I do have, I think Paul and Ryan are both still on here. Paul and Ryan, did you notice any vegetarian options?
Hi, Josh. I think you're going to be hard pressed to eat vegetarian. I don't recall any consistent vegetarian options. It was a lot of meat for me, and I'm a meat eater, but it was a lot of meat.
Yep. And then there is the question, what is the outfitter's name again? I'm just going to scroll up here so you can take a screenshot if you'd like. It is Palaronda Trek. Going way to the beginning. I wanted to get the spelling right for you. Palaronda Trek.
The other guide's name was Peter or Peter,
Peter. Okay, thank you.
and those both of those guys were great. If there's a way to request them, I would highly recommend it. And they were in the refugios, they were celebrities. Everyone wanted to talk to them and buy a beer, buy them a beer.
Say, Josh, I
Yeah.
see a couple additional questions here. D is wondering whether language is much of an issue, and
Oh,
Carol is wondering about tipping.
yeah. So language, with the guides, Rocco spoke completely fluent English. And I mean, you could tell he had a little bit of an accent, but he was totally fluent. Peter, he was hit or miss. And a couple of our fellows on the trip spoke fluent German. And remember, people in Europe are typically bilingual, if not trilingual or quadlingual. So there was a lot of talking in German on the trip because they found out that they could communicate much more effectively in German. So that was pretty cool. Now in the region, I mean, in Venice, you're not going to have any issues with language. In San Martino, same thing. Everybody speaks English. Now, the other thing too, just with technology where it's at with Google Translate, and now we have a lot of live translation functionality in smartphones. I never have language issues when I travel around the world. And I haven't for a long time. I mean, I still remember 10 years ago, I was in Costa Rica and I was trying to order a steak and I was having issues and I just pulled out Google Translate and we figured it out in 30 seconds. So if you haven't used Google Translate or Apple Translate or one of those functions, I highly recommend learning how to use it. It's a great tool. Carol is also asking about tipping. So we did tip. It is Europe, so tipping is not expected, but it is common, and we all did tip. I don't even remember how much we tipped. It wasn't huge. I think I maybe gave Rocco, I think 80 euros or 40, or I don't. Do you remember, Paul, what we tipped?
Yeah, I think it was 80 or 100.
Yeah. And that was because we were with Rocco the whole time. We gave less to well, Pater was with us for a lot, so he got pretty good. The third guy got a little bit less because he was only with us a day. Someone here is asking more German or Italian language. People speak Italian in this region, but they also speak German, but Italian is the primary language. Now, I am going to give Paul a little bit of crap because I remember we were having lunch on our way up to San Martino, and we were sitting there, and I'm just like, that waitress does not look Italian. She looks German. She's blonde. She's like not super dark skin. Like, this is interesting. And Paul looks at her and he goes, "What are you?" And I'm just like, Paul, what are you doing?
She took it in stride.
She did. She did.
She said Italian, but she was definitely German.
Yes, and this region changed hands so much. And I mean, in
Yeah.
these regions that are kind of between ethnicities, you're always going to have a lot of diversity. That's anywhere you go in the world.
We've answered all the questions. So thank you so much, Josh, for this fabulous presentation. I think we learned a lot. So thank you very much for taking the time.
Thanks for watching this Minnesota Rovers presentation. If you want to see more, please click on the link to our channel or the subscribe button below. Thank you.